Our member for St. James North.
I ain't rapping, no, not rapping.
I intervene in this debate under the head of the Ministry of Public Works and Transport. First by saying, Mr. Chairman, that of course this is the first speech from my new position in this Parliament, and you know, I'll feel comfortable anywhere in this Parliament, Mr. Chairman, once it is on the side of the Barbados Labour Party. I will not be seen on the side of the Democratic Labour Party, and therefore it is not an issue, Mr. Speaker. First, want to say, sir, that the issue of improvement of roads and building of roads, repairs of roads should be based on a non-partisan position. And, you know, it is, we on this side are happy to see that an additional $21 million is being voted for this ministry in this year's estimates. Quite surprised, Mr. Chairman, to hear the honourable member for St. Lucie, who likes to speak all the time, that he is senior in terms of quantity, number of years in this Parliament, even if not in quality, to say, you know, that yes, the government should provide social services to all the constituencies, but if your belly full and mine is empty, I should get more, because that is the same honourable member who, in his 14 years in political wilderness as an opposition member of Parliament, said that social services should be equally distributed between all the constituencies in Barbados. And we have a situation here where certainly under the program that we have seen, a lot of the 10 million US loan that is being proposed would be road improvements in DLP held constituencies. And really and truly, Barbadians drive on all the roads. Tourists who we depend on drive on all the roads, whether it is in a DLP held constituency or a BLP held constituency. And therefore we do not, this is an area where narrow party political considerations should not come into play. Clearly, Mr. Chairman, this is a situation in Barbados where we have great traffic congestion. I mean, we have what? I don't know, 130,000 vehicles on the road at any given time. And, you know, therefore, traffic congestion is something that the policymakers in the ministry, starting from the minister down, must take into consideration. And we on this side think it was certainly a mistake, an error of judgment, and typical short-sightedness of the Democratic Labour Party government in refusing to go ahead with flyovers that were proposed by the last Barbados Labour Party administration. I think up to 5 flyovers were being proposed, certainly at least 2, one in the Warrens area, one in the Wildy area, 2 of the most heavily trafficked areas at all hours, not only at prime time in Barbados. And really and truly, when the late Prime Minister, obviously in agreement with the Cabinet of Barbados, fired, I think it was 3S on the floor of Parliament, and they were to do the flyovers and said they weren't doing any. That was a mistake which they will live, or rather Barbadians certainly will live to regret was made by the government of Barbados. We have, Mr. Speaker, issue of, Mr. Chairman, when you look at the Barbados Labour Party manifesto, the LP had proposed in the 2008 manifesto to pave all roads in communities in the country by 2010. And that would have been a very good policy. Again, on coming into office, the Democratic Labour Party government did not proceed with that program. I mean, the Barbados Labour Party had Rural Development Commission involved in this public works ministry. Certainly in my constituency, roads were started by Rural Development Commission in areas such as Upper Mount Standfast, which when the DLP government came into office, they discontinued, and up to now, they have not been done. And this is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. We have the issue again, Mr. Speaker, of transparency and good governance. Even during this debate, a member on the government's front bench, I believe it was the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central, the Minister of Sports, spoke about how the Democratic Labour Party are into good governance. But yet we have the inexcusable situation where, again, a major statutory corporation and no annual report laid in this Parliament of Barbados since the financial year 2008-2009. That's the last annual report laid in this Parliament of Barbados, 2008-2009. And this, Mr. Speaker, is totally inexcusable, because this is a situation where you have a statutory corporation that is being heavily subsidized by the taxpayers of this money. And therefore, it ought to be incumbent on any Minister of Transport to bring before this Parliament, before the representatives of the people, and therefore but before the people of Barbados, annual reports which include the auditor's report and financial statements showing how money is being spent, the profits, the loss, whatever. I understand that tomorrow this Parliament is going to be asked to vote monies for the Transport Board. They should not bring any such resolution or supplementary or money resolution, Mr. Chairman, unless annual reports are laid in here, showing us financial statements, showing us auditor statements. How can you be asked to vote money for a statutory corporation and you don't have annual reports before you for the last 7 years? And the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, who was Minister for 5 years, who would have brought at the most one report before this Parliament. And he is a person who has been involved in business and ought to know that he should not run a government ministry like that, because it is taxpayers' money involved. And the Honourable Present Minister, my good friend, very good criminal lawyer, he ought to know that too, that this is taxpayers' money that we're dealing with, and we have a duty to provide annual reports, including audited reports and financial statements to this Parliament, if we're talking about good governance. And this is one of the reasons why there's a lot of inefficiency in government, in statutory corporations, etc., for which ministers of government have to take full responsibility for. We also have the issue, Mr. Chairman, of workers who were made redundant at the Transport Board 2 years ago. They eventually, I believe, got their severance payment or unemployment benefits after almost a year. I don't believe that they got interest on those monies as they ought to have got, since they were outstanding for more than 4 months. I believe that over 200 Transport Board workers were fired. But what is relevant about this to this debate, Mr. Speaker, was that yesterday we heard from a leading sportsman of the Cabinet, the Honourable Minister of the Environment, on concern for pensions for parliamentarians. on a concern about parliamentarians being deprived of their pension because of an act. And that the public of Barbados must take note, because all of his fellow cabinet ministers tapped in adulation and in agreement with what he was saying. The public of Barbados saw in real terms what they have been saying on the ground for months and years, that the Democratic Labour Party parliamentarians are more concerned about pensions for parliamentarians than for proper work and payment and employment for the people of Barbados. The cabinet of Barbados, led by that Minister of the Environment and the Honourable Minister of Transport, for instance, would have fired over 3,000 workers under conditions that the Right Honourable Prime Minister himself, in some cases, said that the way they were fired was very, 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 very wrong. And these workers were only paid after months. In some cases, in the case of the workers of the National Conservation Commission, fired unceremoniously 2 years ago, and up to now not yet paid 1 red cent, cents now out of circulation, not even 5 cents. Sent before an employment rights tribunal, which was not existent at the time, that up to now can't even give a decision, but yet Democratic Labour Party parliamentarians more concerned about pensions.
I remember, just trying to
Yes,
be
Mr.
on
Chairman.
transport, and you have
But-
about... no, hold on, wait a minute.
Sorry, sir.
Just trying to tighten to the debate, and I really want to stick to relevance.
Yes, sir, I understand about
bring it
talking
back.
about transport board workers, sir, who were fired. If you have to look at it within context, the transport board workers, 200 were fired, sir. But now we hear about, in some cases, new transport board employing new employees. When a lot of the workers who were sent home were wrongfully fired in breach of the last in, first out principle. We had a situation where the Honourable Minister almost, by his actions, caused a shutdown, or in a case where a relative allegedly being looked to put in. All of this bad practices, employment practices of the Democratic Labour Party government, who don't care really and truly about the workers of Barbados, but care about pensions. I mean, they are all now, Mr. Chairman, entitled to pensions after 8 years gone since January. All of them now entitled to pensions. But that is the Democratic Labour Party for you that has been hoisted on the people of this country. We have the situation, Mr. Speaker, where, and Mr. Speaker, you know, I like to be fair.
Chairman,
I still have, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I like to be fair. I like to hear on the floor of Parliament, though still commend the Ministry of the Environment, headed by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, one of the very few ministries to have done any kind of work of whatever kind in St. James North since the Democratic Labour Party came into office. Some work done at Sion Hill in terms of drainage, sir. Not the ministry under this head, but, sir, you could appreciate having repercussions, because if the drainage is bad, the roads can get worse.
I remember, wrap up, please.
The roads will get worse, and we will have to wait and see how the rains, when the heavy rains come in, how they have been treated. But we still need works in areas such as Trent and Lower Carlton, Westmoreland, Rotterdam, in terms of the road works and the drainage. We have written, Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Minister for Transport since April 3 years ago on about 10 roads in the constituency of St. James North. To his credit again, Mr. Chairman, he himself responded to the letter within a week of getting it, and I credit him for doing that. But none of the roads repaired, none of the 10 roads named, and most of them in the area of St. Peter, which was transferred to St. James North. And that is an area that would normally vote for the Democratic Labour Party candidate. But some of the worst roads in Barbados in those constituencies. And I really believe, Mr. Chairman, in the philosophy of the honourable member of St. Lucie before he went into government, that there should be more equitable distribution of the finances of the taxpayers' money in terms of road repairs in this country. So,
I remember your time was
saying
expired.
that my time has run out,
Yes.
and I will come back later on.
Ed.